Okay. Well, then my next trick will be making it accessible to the students. Whoa, I'll need Steve's help. So I'd love to start our live stream sessions with a prayer. And it's just my habit. So let's do that. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this opportunity to talk about you, talk about counseling. I pray that this time is enriching for all who listen, and that new thoughts and curiosities come up as a result. Thank you for this opportunity. It's truly a gift. In Jesus' name, we all said,
Amen.
Amen. All right. So I want to talk about incorporating or not incorporating God into a session, and how we do that, and if we should do that, and maybe, and also your input of some things you're thinking after looking at. It's really last week's session, and as I said in that first video I did, we're going to talk about what you turned in last night, or things related to what you turned in on Sunday. And the reason for that is this is Monday, and I can't expect you to know what's going on for this week till the end of the week, right? So it's a little behind, but I think that it will enhance your learning. That's my hope. And this gives you an opportunity to ask questions. And the three of you who ask questions, I'm sure other students who may watch this recording will have some of those same questions, right? And so that's the hope. And of course, as we know, these optional things are just that, they're optional. You're not required to watch it or be here. And so if you are here, it's a great gift to me, and I enjoy that. So I have to flip my page. You know, as you all, I think from looking at the black and white PowerPoint today, that was from last week's session, it really brings up that question, should we ask? When should we ask about a person's spiritual views? And the second question I have is, should we share our own? And then a third question I have, can exploring spirituality in the counseling room ever be a hindrance to therapy? So I have answers in my head, but I don't want to give those to you first. I want to hear some of your thoughts about those.
I think it's good to at least touch on it in the initial intake session. I know a lot of intake paperwork will ask about spirituality and religious beliefs. I think for people that come from a Christian faith, sometimes that'll be easier to just share that just from personal experience in that first session, depending on what you're going through. But I think that that's still a really good question to ask, even if they don't bring anything up, because it could be a source of strength for them that they don't realize, or, it could be revealing more about their problems as well. So I think first session is a good time to bring it up. But then I think there probably will be presenting opportunities throughout. But what does everybody else think?
Haley, I definitely agree with that. I think it's good to do that in the intake process. I really believe that it can assist the counselor in the treatment planning of an individual. I think that you have a better understanding of how to approach certain situations and what's welcome versus what's unwelcome. You may not have the full picture, but it kind of gives you that freedom to explore exactly where they are from a spirituality perspective, if at all. Or even if they're seeking spirituality, it gives you that opportunity to be somewhat of a guide in that session to really harness exactly what their thoughts and beliefs are. Either way, considering their values and their beliefs, I think is critical. And just being respectful of where they are is very important.
I think the reason that I ask is that I want to find other sources of support for this person so that they're not just dependent upon me. And I think that a person's faith seems, in my experience, seems to be so far the people I've spoken with, because it's been related to church, or people who know that I'm at the church and then like want to talk to me. It's almost like a way of putting myself out of a job, sort of. Does that make sense? Like, so that they have a network of people outside of me that eventually I'm funneling them into a happy and healthy kind of life, you know, so that even if I don't really understand maybe where they're coming from or what that faith teaches, because that was something that came up in our discussion boards, that I would just be tapping other resources for this person. I don't know.
Yeah, I want to interject. Hi, Jeff. We're recording the session. Are you okay with that?
Certainly. Sorry I'm late.
That's fine. I got a weird signal on this computer that the session may end. I don't know what that's about. If it is, I will get back on. If it shuts down, and we'll try again. I will tell you that in my experience of being in the room in intake, the religiosity piece may not come up if we're in crisis. So just, I want us, we have to be flexible and adaptable when the people come in. So it is something that and it's not on my, I don't think it's on my intake form of symptom checklist or information. So it's something that in my work, it evolves, and it comes in the context of what we're talking about. So like you just said, Julie, if you're talking about a ring of support, that's generally when I talk about it too at times. But that support may not come in on that intake session. It depends on if I'm lowering a crisis, especially when I'm working with couples. We have to just lower the crisis and make sure that they leave the session with a game plan of how to avoid the crisis, or how to, decompress the crisis. So from my work, it's part of my thinking all the time. And I try to interject it in the context of the conversation. So context means everything to me when I'm bringing up and asking those questions of spirituality. And sometimes they'll mention something about church life. And then I go, boom, tell me about that church life. Is that church life helpful to you? Is it not helpful to you? How is it helpful to you? And if it is helpful, how can we build on that? So I kind of do it in the context of the counseling that goes on. It's not so much a box that they check on my intake, but everybody's intake, I probably suspect, is a little bit different. And just like some of the medical forms I fill out, they ask what your religion is, and I fill that in. So those are all good questions and good answers you've made, all of you, about Nikki, I think about respecting the client's beliefs. We all got that, right? Respecting, even when we don't agree with them, or even if we think the way they're interpreting that belief is not helpful to them. Again, in context, we'll bring it up, but maybe not right then, because we want to build trust first. We have to build that therapeutic alliance. And challenging at the get-go, with the exception of violence and those kinds of things, challenging their beliefs from the get-go generally doesn't build alliances, right? There's an order of business. First, the welcoming, the joining, the aligning with them, being curious about them, being happy they're in your room. Those are just general ways of connecting with your client. So challenging their beliefs is not something we do at the very beginning, generally. Does that make sense? So, so how about the question of, do we tell our clients about our own beliefs?
I'm very comfortable with that. I think in my overall explanation and disclosure of who I am, exactly the type of therapy that I provide, etc., that I'm very willing to disclose that. I also don't want people to feel as if just because I'm a Christian and I'm a believer that I'm not going to be open. But at the same time, I believe for my own spiritual beliefs and values, it's important for me to stand on that belief.
Okay, and will that depend, Nakia, on your setting or in where you're practicing, or will you be able to do that in a community mental health setting, do you think?
I think it depends on where you're practicing. It's no different than general employment in the workplace. You don't necessarily go into corporate America screaming, I'm a Christian, and blessing everybody and laying an anointing of hands. But
you're right about that.
yeah, you don't. But at the same time, I think people see the Christ in you regardless. But at the same time, if it's welcomed or unwelcomed, I'm still very comfortable and confident in expressing that belief. But I do think I can be diplomatic in that regard as well.
Yeah, and I think we do have to be diplomatic is a good word. We do in the counseling field have to be diplomatic about our own beliefs and discerning about when that's appropriate and when it isn't, because it isn't always. So there has to be great discernment there. Other thoughts?
I would agree. That's what I was going to say, is when the opportunity is right or when the client asks, then I would share it. But if you, as you were talking about before, if it's done too soon or at an inappropriate moment, you're likely to lose rapport or not do any good in the session.
Mm-hmm. I hope to work somewhere that is more like a community mental health center, because I got to the midpoint of a biblical counseling degree at Westminster Seminary before I withdrew to enter this program, because I wanted a broader base of what I can do. And I think that a lot of it depends on your personality too, and the way that you share your faith anyway with people. Are you really upfront? Are you really, do you wear your religion on your Facebook page? Do you, or do you just try to be friends with people and let the conversation develop organically? I don't know. It tends to be how I tend to do things more. The danger there, though, is that maybe you're ashamed or embarrassed and you don't ever get to that point, in the relationship. But I think just following your natural bent is wise in a lot of ways, because I don't think there is a formula that we can, it sort of reminds me of a public school teacher and how much he or she can share about her faith with her class if you're in this kind of a context, because really all that he or she can do is love those kids well. So I think that if we can do that first and foremost, then the other stuff will follow when God is ready for it to follow.
Yeah, I learned a kind of a credo when I was in graduate school. We only self-disclose if it's to benefit the client and bring them to an equal sitting as us. Remember, they're all coming to us, the professional, with their problems, and it's a one-down position for them and a one-up for us. And so the only time to self-disclose is to bring this more at a level which empowers the client. So I always keep that in mind, even if talking about spiritual things. And it's been helpful to me through the years. Otherwise, the big danger is that we end up talking about ourselves and we should be paying them. And that's not okay. We have to be very, the word diplomatic, Nakia, you said, and I said discerning. We have to be real careful that we don't impose ourselves in the session. There's a balance. There's kind of a dance there. So, and it also depends on your setting. So in a Christian ministry I did for 10 years, of course, it was assumed, right? And it was self-selecting. So everyone who came were Christians of the Protestant bent usually. Some from the Catholic side as well, but usually Protestant, of every soup to nuts, Pentecostal to Seventh-day Adventist and everything in between. So it's assumed And still, we can't talk too much about ourselves, right? Because it's their session, it's their need. We don't need to be talking about ourselves unless it brings that power and brings us down and them up. I'm getting confused, but
I learned something that was helpful about that too. There's such a danger in sharing about yourself, because if you're trying to do so in such a way that says, I totally understand where you're coming from because I experienced this too, your client might be like, no, that's nothing like what, why am I here? You don't even understand, so we're trying to do the right thing and say, yeah, just like you, man, I get it. I totally feel this. And you just we miss it. We totally miss it. And I think the danger is that we start getting wrapped up in our own story. And that isn't why they came.
it's a huge danger.
It is a danger.
I just, for me, because I like to talk, and who doesn't like to talk about themselves? It's a human need. So that's why in the counseling room, we have to discipline ourselves to be really, really, first and foremost, really good listeners. And the information we get, we file it back in our head. We don't answer every single thing they say in the room, but we file it back for when it's time to express it later on. It could be next session, it could be 6 sessions away, but you've got it filed back, and then you'll bring it back out. And I remember you saying ... and now I have a question about it. Because we get hit with the fire hose when they first come in. They're just and depending, maybe some of you are in practicum and internship and have experienced that, or in your daily work, when people are hurt, they don't call us when things are somewhat bad in their lives. They call us when things are so bad they can't see straight. So and that's just the nature of our work. And it seems to be even more so with couples than individuals. They let it go way longer because they can support each other in the disarray or chaos for longer than sometimes they can by themselves. So
I've been thinking about this just going into practicum in the fall, and if we have on our disclosure statements, or we have the form that they need to sign just to release that they're able to record and everything, and it's going to say I'm a student at Colorado Christian University. So I've been kind of playing through that scenario and okay, how do I, if they ask about that, I'm hoping that's not going to be a turnoff or something that's going to make them not want to be open or anything with me. But I think that is in and of itself a very first off, kind of a introductory thing that they may ask about if they have truly really looked at the disclosure statement and seen that's kind of where I'm studying. So I'm trying to be aware of that now ahead of time, just to be okay, this might come up, and how am I going to deal with that?
Yeah, that's exactly. It's sort of like me at the Christian ministry. They assume, and but not all students at Colorado Christian are Christian.
Right.
So we can't assume, but it'll be beautiful conversation for you and the client if they ask.
Yeah.
And here goes the adventure. How's that going to go? Haley, we don't know.
Nope.
that's what makes it so exciting. Yeah, I'm just thinking my years in community mental health, I didn't disclose that. Even if they asked me, I don't remember disclosing that. I would do the typical, oh, why do you ask? The typical counselor answer, why would you ask me that? And then the conversation keeps on going. But we did talk about spiritual things, especially when I worked with the chronically mentally ill, because the Christian community could be a huge support for them, and getting them connected to resources out in the community were really helpful, because socializing was sometimes difficult. So it was wonderful to see that happen and encourage that. So what do you think about, what are some of the detriments of working with spiritual issues in the room? Can you think of any? If you can't, I've got a big one.
I don't want to talk too much, so I'm going to keep it short. I think it's hard for me.
Not talking too much.
Issues of spiritual abuse, I think, are really coming to the forefront of, I see it on social media. I see it, within SBC denomination and Paige Patterson and the Me Too movement moving into Protestantism, kind of where it was in Catholicism 20 years ago. Aside from the sexual and the physical abuse that already churches should deal with better, these issues of churches that are just very hardline about lots of things, maybe about gender roles. And I'm not talking about like God's view of marriage sort of issues. I'm talking about complementarianism taken to the extreme. I also homeschool my kids. So the homeschooling movement has had a lot of issues. I think of the Pearls, who wrote the book, How to Train Up a Child. And just all of this kind of covert, subtle abuse that can happen that I think people don't always intend it to be abusive, but it ends up stifling women and children, especially because there's this overemphasis on authority and submitting and obeying authority, and not enough emphasis on the inherent dignity and value of people as made in the image of God.
And freedom.
And freedom, right, because the system has to be maintained at all costs, and I think that people are hurt in the process. So I could count on two hands the women that I have known in the last decade who have been in marriages, for example, like this, where the husband is using religion on a regular basis to control his wife. Now, he may not hit her, but he may decide who she hangs out with, how she spends her money, if she can go play racquetball or not, all kinds of things. And men are given a lot of power in these sorts of circles. So I think these issues with women, particularly, who are Christians and active in their churches, because to be a good Christian, godly woman, you're to be submissive, you're to be gentle, a gentle and quiet spirit, like all of these things that we want to overlook an offense, and we want to be Christ-like. And I think that there's some serious danger there to the hearts of women. So that's something.
So how does that affect the counseling room, Julie?
I just think that we need to be sensitive to the fact that religion hasn't always been a help to women. That many times the Bible can be twisted around in such a way that it can be harmful, but it's cloaked in spiritual language and an idea that, of course we believe the Bible is true. So thank you for bringing me back around to the question. That's a good teacher who does that.
Yeah, I think that that's been used since the beginning of time, for power and control. So,
right.
And that's an issue in the counseling room. It's particularly an issue whether you're dealing with one spouse individually or you're dealing with the couple.
Mm-hmm.
So those are good points. So I've always interject, what are our treatment goals? And all those issues you brought up, if the treatment goal is to heal the marriage and bring it to health, then all those issues will be revealed and discussed. Don't know how it'll turn out. And those are, abuse is a real issue, and it comes in many, many different forms, in as many forms as anyone can imagine. And those have to be addressed in the counseling room for sure. And it happens in every walk of life, every single one. It doesn't matter what community we live in, what church we go to or not go to, where we work. It happens everywhere because we're humans and we're broken. So I think as you're speaking, what comes to mind is when we are sitting with people is to remember that this is where I am in my life right now, so it's a little bit of self-disclosing. Humility is really important, not to think we're better than the client coming to us with whatever problem they have, no matter what way of life they're coming from. And that brings me to a story. You want to hear one of my clinical stories? So, yes, Jeff, thank you. One of my first job out of my graduate program was working for an inner city, Denver inner city addiction program. And one of my clients was a woman who looked a lot like me, was married about the same amount of time. Husband was a professional. She had the same amount of children. And so it was almost a bit like looking in the mirror. And she was in my program because she had gotten arrested for prostitution, and she was prostituting to support her crack addiction. And as I sat with her, and I just realized as I got to know her and I was learning how to do this craft of counseling, that I could be her. It could have happened to me. I could be her in her lifestyle just as easily as she walked into it. And that she, like me, is made in God's image, just the same. That I am no better than her. She's no better or worse than me. That we are all one in this humanity. And it taught me that I needed to look at everyone who walks into my office as made in God's image. And it's part of my, it may not be their treatment goal, but my inner treatment goal for them is that I dig for that image, that goodness in the person, so that they can find it, and I help them see that as best I can. So she's not a prostitute in my office. She's a daughter of the Lord, and I see her that way and help her see that in herself. But I don't use those words, right? Because I'm in a public setting. So I use words like find your value, find the love you have in your heart for yourself and for your beautiful family. You know, how do you make amends? You know, all those addiction words that we use in the program. So it was just a really good experience for me early in my career to stay humble and not think I'm better than anybody who walks in, because it's just not, that's a lie if I think I am. And it just allows me a little better conscious awareness of their value and how to look for it. And that's really hard. Now that gal I could like, because she was me sitting in the room, but there are sometimes it's hard to like our clients, but it is our work to do that. That's what we have to find, things to like about them, no matter who they are, and help them like themselves too. It's a two-way deal. So the other question, so that, Julie, you did answer, like when religion and maybe spirituality isn't very helpful. I have another example of in the counseling room, especially the 10 years we spent with Christian workers, is that sometimes we can hide behind our religion. And I saw that happen a lot. They could give me verses and say all the right words, and we weren't getting to the core of them. And so people can hide behind it. So I would just encourage you all to be watchful. If you get on the topic, make sure that you end up talking about their deeper thoughts and feelings. And why did people do that? Why would they hide behind their religion? Got any thoughts about that?
I would think it's a comfortable space. It's no different than probably hiding behind fear or depression or anxiety or the things that you're most familiar with. As well as religion, I would think is something that no matter what you believe in, you can relate and divert different topics through religious aspects of the conversation. So you never really have to get to the true issues if you start to bring up something that's common ground for everyone.
Right on, Nikia. That is very, very true. So even when I would get very frustrated with people running to their religious beliefs or their traditions, I get frustrated because I knew they were hiding and we weren't getting anywhere. But truthfully, like you said, it's where they're comfortable. And a lot of times, people when they walk into your room, they're terrified. Do you know that? Do you know it's really scary for a client to walk into your room? And just knowing that for us gives us a greater empathy for them. And that's really good information that we know that they're scared and seeking help, and they don't want to be vulnerable because that's scary too. And if they take away some of the labels and the things that give them value on the outside, that maybe we won't value them. I mean, it could be a lot of things. We can make lots of hypotheses about why they're hiding behind it. But if we get stuck on that roller coaster of their traditions and beliefs, we may never get to the core of what's going on.
I think from my own personal experience, I worked at a church for 3.5 years, and it did become a comfortable thing because you were in that space and you kind of, it felt as though you were expected to be a certain way and hide the things that weren't good. Even though it should be the space that you should be able to come and be honest and truthful with people about how you're feeling. And I also think the church doesn't do a great job at helping people to understand emotions. A lot of times they're like, emotions are bad. I think the modern church is kind of coming to a little bit more and understanding the value of emotions, but I don't think every church is like that. But yeah, I mean, I really think that for someone maybe coming into your retreat center, Patty, like being in that place of like, I got to put this front on. I don't know how to deal with my emotions, so I'm just going to tell you the truth that I know from the Bible, and I can explain it with this easy thing, and it's easy to do that, and I don't want to learn about my emotions because those are bad. And I've been thinking a lot about that recently, just kind of how the church has like molded and shaped people, and whether or not they're okay with delving into things like that, and how we kind of separate good from bad, and how sometimes we may not be right when we're like saying, well, this thing is bad because it's our flesh. Well, it's good things to talk about in counseling because that's what we're trying to kind of understand about ourselves and come to a better understanding of how we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to be healthy. So that's even just from my own experience. I understand like it's hard to work in that setting and feel like it's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah, it's very true because we have expectations of how we're to behave and live our lives, and when we fail, it's hard to confess that. It's hard to find a safe place where we can do that and not be judged. And that's, to me, that's the counseling room, is a place where you can do that and be accepted and be comforted and allowed a true confession. Sometimes the counseling room is very much a confessional. And sometimes church can be that, and sometimes not. It's, again, the church is made up of a bunch of broken humans, you and me, and we don't always do the healthiest thing. And sometimes our heart's in the right place and sometimes not. So in this profession, part of our work and part of even this class is you recognizing your beliefs more through this class, and even the hope of becoming closer to God in these next few weeks as you experience some of these ancient practices of retreat, quiet time, that you're comfortable with yourself and your own beliefs, that you can sit down and be comfortable with others as they come and sit in your room. And so that's my hope for you, as you get more comfortable with your own beliefs, whatever they are. And they're going to be different. We're all different from each other, and that's exciting too. Even people from the same denomination aren't going to have the same beliefs or the same traditions. That's how unique we are. And so here's the thing, is that when someone comes into your room and they tell you a certain denomination that they are, be careful about assumptions. Be very, very careful, because you could be insulting or rude without knowing it. Ask for more information. Always ask for more information. And again, that builds rapport because you're learning more about them. And that's what you want to do. So, Nakia, when you first said you'll let people know your beliefs, and that'll have to fit in your setting. Wherever, where you are. Some settings that'll work, like in that 10 years of ours, it worked there. It wouldn't have worked in community mental health at all. So, you kind of, it's a dance to see what's acceptable. What isn't, or let me say positively, what is also always available to us is to love our client and to see God's image in them, to always provide hope. That's our job, to provide hope for something different to happen for them. And for me, as a family systems therapist, I really don't care what changes. I just want to see change. Sometimes even bad change creates an environment for good change to happen. So stuckness is too long of, a little bit of stuckness is all right. But too long of a stuckness isn't okay with me. So that's just my personality. Steve can sit with stuckness. My husband, he can sit with it for months and months with people, and not me. I'll refer those people to Steve. But it depends on, you practice. I'm teaching the marriage and family course right now, and so I'm getting a little confused with this, but in your room, you will use yourself. God will use you and your personality and your experiences. So that's what's going to be used in that room. And so if you are connecting with God in that session, and you're praying for help in that session, like I do, you'll have moments of that contextual ability to draw out their faith. Is it a positive? Is it a negative? And to work with what that is, because there may be healing from abuse from the church, like you were talking about, Julie, or it could be a safe community for them. You don't know, and everything in between, right? Any thoughts? Well, let me go back to my Hey, Matt, nice to see you.
Hey, everybody. Sorry for being late. Glad I can make it. Sorry for the lateness, and I know you guys talked about a lot of stuff, so I apologize about that.
Well, let me just tell you, the session's being recorded. Are you all right with that?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to make it. I know it's optional, but I just want to get a better feel for you and everybody else.
So what do you all think about collaborating with the client's clergy? I know there were some mixed thoughts in the discussion. What do you all think about that? Good thing, bad thing, indifferent?
Depends on the faith, I would say.
On the what?
On their faith, on to me it would be tantamount to collaborating with any other professional if you felt the professional was appropriate, on track, and had the client's best interest at heart, then certainly.
Yes.
I used some hesitation that Julie was bringing up before. You quite often have those beliefs, and I'm not trying to state a case, but if you had a clergy who felt the client was behaving improperly and would browbeat him with his faith, then no, I probably wouldn't collaborate with that clergy at all.
Okay, so you would be discriminatory, just discriminate between what you think would be helpful and resourceful and what wouldn't be.
Yes, it would have to be in the best interest of the client. It would. And then you have the issue, and other issues, and of course, coming from community mental health and community services, issues of confidentiality and a myriad of other conflicts that might arise when you involve clergy in a session. So clergy are immune to confidentiality, and unfortunately I'm not, and I think mixing those two might bring up some issues that could become problematic.
Oh, that's a good point. So the clergy may share the information you give them with other people other than the client.
Correct, and they can do so. And
good point.
And I've promised the client that information would not be shared. So it would have to be collaboration with that clergy, with the consent of the client, and certainly with a number of disclosure forms signed and some protections in place.
Absolutely. Good points, Jeff. That's a very good point. Yeah, confidentiality is crucial, and we don't. Well, here in this small town, and Jeff, you've probably done that too. I always tell my clients, if I bump into you at Walmart, I will not be saying hello. Yeah, so that's, in the smaller the community, the more, even more particular or careful we have to be.
Very true, and it is a small enough town. You may find that at some point you're actually attending church with that client, with that clergy, and that could be. Then you got issues of dual relationships.
Then the collaboration could be extremely detrimental.
Yes.
So we do have to be careful, and as I've said in many of your posts, always consult. Talk with your supervisor. I've been doing this for a long time. I still have a group of consult group that I do with other counselors in town, and it's just, and I have colleagues that I could call and say, hey, I'm having this ethical issue. Would you help me make some clarity out of this? And we have to do that our whole career, because everything that comes up, I mean, it's just, God is so creative with us. There's just every kind of situation that can come up, and new situations. Always remember to consult about these things, because they can get really sticky. And what you described, Jeff, is very sticky and could be very harmful to the client. Very, very harmful. So I looked at my notes just then. Sometimes the client's belief system, and Julie, you pointed that out real big, can be very harmful to the person's well-being, the client in our room. So, you know, we have to be careful and kind, and as we explore those things and build trust, and then we earn the right to challenge them on those beliefs. You know, because challenging is, if we're not challenging, we're not doing our job either. We're being a friend. Counselors have to challenge, and that's our job. Hey, Matt, did you have your hand up? No? Okay, you're fixing your earpiece. Yeah, because there can be harmful effects of our beliefs, and sometimes in a culture that's hard to see, and so we have to help them see things that maybe they're not seeing. And that's true with whatever subject those clients are talking about. And oh yeah, here's another thing. This is actually from an article I read. When we're challenging I think I kind of said this, but in our challenge, we want to be very respectful in our challenge as well. And in no way denigrate the client because they believe a certain way. And I think if we're being respectful, that that will take that away. You know, we have to be able to challenge them. And when we're learning this care, you all care for people. That's why you're in the program. And most of you have been caring for people a long, long time, maybe your whole lives. So that part you have, and that's why you entered the program. And that caring is something that will go a long way to helping your clients heal, because we really genuinely care. It's hard to fake caring. Have you noticed that? They usually pick it up really fast and they don't schedule again, generally speaking. So that's a really important part when we're exploring these sensitive issues of faith, sensitive issues of relationship. You know, all the issues that come into our room are sensitive. You know, parenting styles, how they relate to other people, their sense of their own efficacy in the world and how that may be lacking. You know, those are humbling, vulnerable things to address. So that caring goes a long way. Oh, I think I've exhausted everything I've read today. Any last thoughts?
Yeah, I think I'd like to add, you know, you said that it's difficult to fake caring. I actually took it upon myself to not fake caring, but to fake not caring.
How did that go?
It was just as difficult, if not worse, to be quite honest. So I would encourage people to just be who they are, because it's so difficult to act as if you just genuinely don't care. And I mean, I would do this in the grocery store. I live in a small town in the middle of nowhere, and people are somewhat rude here. So I would always say hello and make eye contact. And I realized people don't speak back to me. So I stopped doing it. And it was so hard for me to not speak to people or make eye contact. And I would literally like stress and struggle and have to come home and talk to my husband about what happened in the grocery store because I didn't say hello. So, so it's just as bad to fake not caring.
I tried that
as it is to,
as a parent in my adolescence. It didn't work well for me either. That never works. That's a good point, Nakia. Yeah, to genuinely be ourselves. So are you saying hello now, whether they say hello back or not?
Yes, I am. I'm learning that my gifts will make room for me. Just say hello, whatever. It's going to impact the right person, you know?
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Be ourselves is very important. And then learning in this program that you're in, you're learning what to say sometimes and also when to say it. You know, what we say is just as important as when we say it. So the pacing in the counseling session is so important, and how we earn the right to challenge them on their beliefs, and what they are. Our beliefs of healthy and unhealthy may really clash with our client, and so finding a bridge for those two differences is hard work and an exciting work, but you'll come home very tired, right, Jeff? You probably come home tired. Yeah. So, but it is you are here because it's got to be a passion of your heart, or otherwise you wouldn't work so hard, right? And these are hard programs with hard classes. So you're doing it because you want to equip yourself to help at a deeper level, right? Yep, preaching to the choir here.
I would say that caring is super important in being an empathic person, but I think knowledge of what to do with that is really important also. There are a lot of caring people out there that really get no results.
That's right.
They care a lot, but that's about it.
Yeah. So learning to listen, and number one, learning when to speak and when not to. Number two, I mean, there's a lot of things of knowledge, isn't there? And then you integrate that with a good heart and all the experiences you have. I believe that God doesn't waste any of our struggles. In this field particularly, we get to dig for those experiences we've had to empathize with the client. And it's, so I confess that I don't find joy in suffering. However, I do see the results of it can be really good, like Paul says in Romans. But that joy piece, I haven't gotten that yet. That's a confession. Don't tell anybody. All right. Well, thank you for joining me tonight and being a part of this. Just a few reminders this week. You're going to meet with your triad or do the threaded discussion with them. Of course, my bias is to try to do a live discussion and just do that one-page summary for each triad. It's the same summary page. One person, you take turns through the weeks, through the course. So you all submit it, the same one in your triad. So one person writes it, all three of you submit it. Right? Okay. And then you're going to do that, actually that counseling session, which is really all about faith. And so you're going to get to experience that with your classmate and see how that goes. And I'll be interested to get your feedback on that. And what else this week? Yes, Julie.
Hi. So I am in a dyad for the entire course. I think there are 4 of us that are in pairs.
That's because of that odd number of students.
Right. So Sylvia and I will always be together for the whole course, or will you be mixing up our groups for various things?
For the triad, but you're really a dyad. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, we're just going to say that your 2 people's a triad for the discussion.
Right. So, which is great. Okay.
It's the same people for those triad
Okay.
discussions. But I gave you a different partner for the counseling experience this week.
Yes. Yes. But Sylvia and I will be working on multiple projects together as we take turns writing the reflection paper, right? After we meet.
Say that again.
Oh man, see? This is my first class, you guys. So can I just say sorry? Just sorry in general.
No, there's no sorry. If you tell me, ask me it again.
So you put me with Sylvia. You guys all have your triad. Do we work with this same group on different projects for the entire block?
No. The only project is the triad discussion that you're.
This is okay. So this is the only kind of thing like this we're doing. Okay. Well, because you said only one person submits a reflection paper this time, which made me think that maybe we were working again together, but maybe I haven't read the whole syllabus.
No. So you and Sylvie are having your discussion this week.
Mm-hmm.
One of you will write the summary. 4 weeks out of this course, you're going to do that on 4 different sessions.
Okay.
You meet, you discuss, and then you write a reflection paper.
Okay.
One of you does. You're going to take turns writing that one page reflection paper. And you're both going to submit the same paper each week.
Right. But I always work with Sylvia. I won't be working with Haley or Matt or anyone. Okay. That was my question, was if we would mix it up or not. Okay. I'm excited to meet for tomorrow.
Are you asking, also, Julie, are you thinking about, so like the dyad thing, the spiritual discipline one,
Uh-huh.
Are you thinking you're working with Sylvia for that as well?
No, I already actually met with Daniel, but
Okay.
I appreciate every single tip that any of you have. If you see me doing something wrong, I want you to tell me.
Just wanted to make sure. I wasn't sure. I was sure that I understood what you were asking either.
I know. It's like when I'm driving and I want someone to say, yeah, did you see their car? There's a car right there. I'm never insulted. I say, thank you. You just spared me a wreck.
No, those are good questions, Julie. So this is your first class.
Yes.
So please ask all of us any of these
Thank
questions.
you.
Don't go to bed thinking, oh, do I have it right? No, just get on the computer and ask the question.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
I just saw a question from you about this very thing, about contacting, but you contacted your partners already, right?
Yes.
Good.
All is well.
I was out of cell phone range for a few days over the 4th.
Right.
So, all right.
You guys
Well,
are awesome.
I have a question as far as the discussion. If we're using the traditional discussion format and not meeting as a triad on a couple of them, is it okay to just continue with 250 to 300 words on the original post?
Good question.
And then,
if you do it, yes, Nakia, do it just your same old, same old.
okay, perfect.
I like it when my bias for you meeting together on the telephone, Zoom, Skype, whatever, is it builds relationship when you're seeing somebody and actually having a conversation. And one of my hopes is that you build relationship with your classmates here, even though you're all over the planet. So
I think we're just doing it that way for the first one. We're doing it differently for the others. It just didn't work out for us to meet. So
I understand. So
and I also sent you 2 emails as well. So yeah.
I'll try to answer them. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, Matt?
Okay, so everything you said is good. It makes sense. I think one of the group members, her name is Sarah. I forget her last name, but I just texted her and she said that I'm part of her group, but I'm with 2 other people, so I'm in a triad. But she said I'm in a dyad as well.
That's for a
So
different assignment, Matt. So there's two different assignments we're talking about.
oh, okay. So for the prayer one.
That's the dyad.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Is that helpful?
Yeah.
So in the student lounge, we made a list of all of you in dyads, and your dyad partner, you're going to do that. The title of it doesn't make sense to me, but you're actually going to do a little counseling session with a prayer.
Yeah.
That's what you do with that person.
Gotcha.
Then your triads for the discussion.
Gotcha.
So this week, the readings is about solitude and prayer.
Okay.
Silence and solitude and prayers this week. So that's what you'll be talking about in your triads.
Okay.
In your dyad, you actually have a script right there in the assignment folder.
Yes. Gotcha. And so with the triad, that discussion is from the book by Thomas, right?
Yes, you're going to talk about the ways you connect to God and Gary Thomas, and then also you're going to read that very short excerpt in Henry Nouwen's book.
Gotcha. Okay. Makes sense.
You're going to talk about those 2 things.
Okay. Gotcha.
I forget the exact questions in the session, but it'll give you questions as well as it always does.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Okay. Go to class, Haley. Bye, everybody. God bless you this week. It's so good to see your lovely faces. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.